Hi. I've had so many emails sent to me from all over the world, people asking about the influence of media on the mind. And especially from a DVD that I put together, which was part of the God's Final Call series, which is entitled The Battle for the Mind. Many people started to realize the influence that music was having on their lives and television, etc., etc. But I've had other people that have asked me more in-depth questions and more difficult questions. How is the media specifically influencing our children? So what I decided to do was put together this short DVD, and if you have any questions or further information you'd like to find out, please contact me. The email will come up on the screen. My email address is info@homebase.org.za. Email me and let me know if there's some way we can help. We have some resources that could also maybe assist you in the fight that you're fighting to try and clean up your homes and protect your family against Satan's influence. What I'd like to do first, though, is to show you, as you've seen the graphic of the start of this presentation, I would like to just warn you that this presentation, I believe, is only suitable for 18s and over. However, you'll find that that's not because I'm going to show pornographic images, of photography of pornographic images. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be showing you images that are readily available for everyone to see while you're driving down the highway, billboards, which I don't believe should be available for everyone to see. So watch this as an adult, as a young adult or as a parent. Make your own mind up whether you feel your children should look at this. But I'm warning you up front so that you're aware and you can make a decision. Would you like to show your children this and make them aware of what's going on? What I'd like to do, the first couple of minutes of this presentation, I'd like to show you a video. It gives you some background as to how white patches, remember those two words, white patches, are burnt into our minds. Watch this.
All right, let's pick up where we left off last night. I want to study for a minute together the mind. And you've already had some of this with the doctor, but we're going to take it a little bit different avenue than he does, a little bit step farther. Let's go ahead and put up on the screen the picture of the brain. And look at a couple things, because your brain's capacity is unbelievable. And they're going to put this slide up. Your brain can actually process 30 billion bits of information per second. Your brain is the equivalent of 6,000 miles of wiring, literally in it. And it houses 28 billion neurons, which communicate with each other over 100,000 miles of nerve fibers, okay? Now, these neurons that we're talking about here, what these simply are, these are nerve cells that conduct impulses in your brain. And without these neurons, your brain would not be able to interpret the information that comes to you through your five senses, your taste, touch, smell, hearing, sight, and so on. Each one of these neurons is a tiny self-contained computer, and you got 28 billion of them, all right? Let's go to the next slide on the screen and read a little bit more here. It says you have about 28 billion neurons, nerve cells that conduct impulses. Each one can process over 1 million bits of information. So of the 28 billion neurons, each one itself can do 1 million bits of information. You've got over 100,000 miles of nerve fibers in your brain. And information from one single neuron can actually travel to over 700,000 of the neurons in less than 20 milliseconds. And so unlike our step-by-step computers today, your brain can literally take anything, any problem, anything you're dealing with, and it can work on these things all at the same time with all these 28 billion neurons. It's just an incredible setup that God has given us. And here's the problem we have then. Most of us try to work our way into changing our behavior. And we work at it, we try to change, and we give it all we got, and we fail, we get discouraged, and so on. When we have to realize the truth is God has designed us in a way that our behavior is actually rooted in our nervous system, in the form of these neural pathways or neural connections, as they're called in medical science today. Ellen G. White, by the way, and I got to throw this in here right now. You know, she's such a blessing, and the more I read her, the more I realize she had to be inspired of God. And there's a couple quotes on this. You got to realize she writes this stuff back in the 1800s.
Right.
And medical science, what God revealed there in the 1800s, medical science has figured this out in the last 20 years. It's amazing. And one of the first quotes I like is on page 60 out of her book, Mind, Character, and Personality. Great book. It says, the influence of the mind on the body, as well as of the body and the mind, should be emphasized. The electric power of the brain, prompted by mental activity, vitalizes the whole system. She talked about the electrical power of the brain. Literally, your brain is wired, literally like a computer. And most people don't realize, literally, it is that way. She goes on to say on page 72, the brain is the capital of the body. It's the seat of all the nervous forces and of mental action. The nerves proceeding from the brain control the body. By the brain nerves, mental impressions are conveyed to all the nerves of the body as by telegraph wires, and they control the vital action of every part of the system. All the organs of motion are governed by the communications they receive from the brain. All right, so these neural pathways control, she says, everything that has to do with your physical body.
Ellen White wrote that?
Back in
Common knowledge back then?
God inspired that.
I wouldn't have thought so.
Medical science has literally discovered this in the last 20 years. But it's just another proof of her inspiration, because this is amazing stuff.
Incredible.
And so anyway, let's take a look at it here. As medical science has discovered these electrical impulses, these hundreds of thousands of miles of wiring that's actually in our mind, this is what enables people to be able to jump from one thing to another. In other words, if I would say to our audience, can you smell a rose? Everybody can smell a rose, right? And this, you have a neural pathway that tells what a rose smells like, okay? In fact, let's go to the next slide. You're gonna see an area here on the next slide. This is your brain magnified 15,000 times, okay? And let's go ahead and throw a little circle in there in the bottom right corner, and you'll notice there that you have these little cobweb little strands. What you're literally looking at, physical neural pathways. They are there, and I want to point this out because it's so important. It's like a fingernail, it's like a hair follicle. These things are physically there. So when I just gave the example of what does a rose smells like, well, that little place you see in their circle, that little strand,
yes,
that is what a rose smells like. It's recorded in your brain in that physical neural pathway, all right? If I would say to you the taste of chocolate, like we have this cake here, all right?
Yes.
Everybody in our audience can tell what chocolate tastes like. Well, again, if you look at that little circle there on the screen, one of those little neural pathways there tells you what chocolate tastes like, okay? A song in your mind, like the song you just heard him sing, that is recorded now in your mind in a physical neural pathway. It's there, physically there. Everything you've tasted, everything you've touched, everything you've seen, everything you've smelled, everything you've heard, everything you've experienced in your life is recorded in this brain in the form of a physical neural pathway. It's there, and it's there forever. Now think about the power of that. It's incredible.
Yes, it is.
When people realize this for the first time, that everything I've seen, tasted, touched, smelled, everything that's come into my five senses is recorded in this brain in the form of a neural pathway, then something else dawns on us, and that is, it's almost scary. My behavior is actually rooted in my nervous system. When I lose my temper, that's because it's rooted in my nervous system. When I'm happy, it's in my nervous system. Anything I experience in life is in my nervous system. And what happens is this, emotion or feeling or thought, that little thin neural pathway is traced there in your brain, and they found something else interesting in medical science today. Anytime you re-access that behavior, that thought, that feeling, that emotion, or whatever it may be, every time you access it, guess what it does? It adds another strand to that same neural pathway.
Oh, have mercy.
You repeat the behavior again, it adds another strand. You hear the word again, it adds another strand. Every time you repeat it, it adds another strand to that neural pathway until that physical neural connection gets stronger and stronger. All right? Let's go to the next slide in the upper left-hand corner, and you're going to see something else very, very interesting here. As they point out in the left-hand corner there, you'll see that white mass. Look at that white mass up there. What you've got there is thousands and thousands and thousands of these neural strands all bound together. All right? This person, let's say that this person has a problem with his temper, and he loses his temper all the time. All right, every time he loses his temper, he adds another strand. He loses his temper the next day, he adds another strand. Then let's say he watches a TV program, and in the TV program, the people are mad and losing their tempers. It adds another strand up there. All right, let's say he reads a book, and in the book, people are losing their tempers. Well, it adds another strand if he thinks that way. He's on the job. He sees people get mad on the job and lose their temper, adds another strand. Every time he sees it, experiences it, hears it, it adds another strand. And so what you're literature right now, you're seeing that mass together. And when people say, I can't seem to help myself, you know what? Right, can't. That's the reason why. So now you're getting the brain. And it's there, and it's there forever. And so the more pattern of behavior, likely that your behavior becomes. The more you strengthen it by repetition, the stronger. People have cables in their brains to certain behaviors like depression, and then